So with Urban Meyer officially out of Jacksonville, general manager Trent Baalke and owner Shad Khan will be looking for the next head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, not only to develop their franchise quarterback back there in Trevor Lawrence, but to also help develop and establish a winning culture in which Jacksonville desperately needs for the future of this team. And I'm going to give my top 5 head coaching candidates that I'd like to see the Jaguars hire, going from number 5 to number 1, and number 1 being the guy that I want the Jaguars to hire most and ideally. But before I do that, I want to give some honorable mentions, and these are probably going to come as a surprise to some of you guys. So some honorable mentions for me is Todd Bowles, Josh McDaniels, Jim Caldwell, Kellen Moore. Yeah. Now, before we begin today's video, I'd like to give a huge shout out to FLTeams.com, who I've partnered and collab with. At FLTeams.com, we do sports articles and blogs on the daily regarding sports teams in the state of Florida from the collegiate and at the professional level. If you guys would like to go check out FLTeams.com, I will link to them down below. And also, don't forget to drop me one of these. So before I begin my list and I start with number 5, let's establish something real quick. There's 2 types of head coaches that I view in the NFL. There's head coaches that have specializations on a side of the ball, and then there's staff building head coaches. There's a difference, right? Sean Payton is a staff builder, for example. Guys like Mike Tomlin and Jim Harbaugh, those guys specialize on the defensive side of the ball. That's why those 2 teams have historically had great defenses, right? Then you talk about a guy like Bruce Arians or Andy Reid, any guy like that. Those guys specialize on the offensive side of the ball. Bill Belichick, the greatest coach in NFL history, is just a great staff builder, and also he individually is just the greatest coach of all time. So we're going to have to decipher that and make those very clear. So let's begin with number 5. At number 5, I've got Byron Leftwich, a guy that I think a lot of Jaguar fans are high on. Now, Leftwich obviously is very familiar with Jacksonville, and obviously Jaguar fans are very familiar with Byron Leftwich. He was the very first Jaguars quarterback I ever remember growing up, right up before David Garrard came in and took over the show. Byron Leftwich has a Super Bowl, I believe, with Pittsburgh at one point during his tenure, and also he just won a Super Bowl recently with Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just a couple hours south here of Jacksonville. And I think that there's a lot of positive that you could take away from a guy like Byron Leftwich, but something that a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that he's never been asked to develop and groom a young franchise quarterback. Notably, he's worked with guys like Carson Palmer and Tom Brady. Those guys were already established quarterbacks in this league, so I don't really see the responsibility Byron's ever had to do taking that, and I'm not knocking him for that. I'm just saying it's definitely a level of concern in my eyes, and I wouldn't necessarily say he's the best fit for the Jaguars, but he's not a bad option. So let's go on to number 4. My number 4 head coach I'd like to see the Jaguars get would be Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you've ever seen an interview or, a press conference with Eric Bieniemy, this guy is phenomenal. Seems like such a very humble, hardworking man, and he's just got like that charisma that I think a lot of people just kind of, galvanize around. He's just kind of got that voice and that type of energy when you watch him. And he's a guy that, you see Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid. These guys praise him, and they state, what a great guy he is. And that's something that I think the Jaguars desperately need. And the only problem with Eric Bieniemy, at least to me, that it raises a level of concern with me and a lot of people, is the fact that Andy Reid is the primary play caller when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And that's not knocking Bieniemy specifically, but I'm just pointing out that that's definitely something I have to consider. And even though he had developed, I guess you could say, Patrick Mahomes, there's a plethora of all-pro Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame talent on that side of the ball. Now, when Patrick Mahomes sat underneath Alex Smith for a year, then just took over the league when he won MVP, I think it was 50 touchdowns, like 12 interceptions, something ridiculous like that. You can credit Bieniemy to that. Like, he's in Patrick Mahomes' headset. I think Bieniemy's a great guy and definitely deserves an opportunity with an NFL team, but he's not that high on my list, and that's why I've knocked him down. I would love to see him here in Jacksonville, but that's why I've got him at number 4. So let's go on to number 3. Now, my number 3 head coach is probably going to come as a surprise to a lot of people, and someone that does not get talked about enough is head coach for the Minnesota Vikings currently, Mike Zimmerman. Now, Mike Zimmerman, since coaching for the Minnesota Vikings back in 2014 as he took over the head coaching position, has a 70-54-1 record, so pretty damn good. You're obviously always going to live in the shadows of Aaron Rodgers as long as you're in the NFC North and Aaron Rodgers is playing, but he's definitely had some brilliant moments and some time with the Minnesota Vikings, and I do believe that this is Zimmerman's last season with the Vikings, especially if they don't make the playoffs in the NFC. Now, the reason I would love Zimmerman is because he's a staff staff builder and a great one. He's always had good OCs. Currently, right now, I believe he's got Clint Kubiak. And back in 2019, he had Kevin Stefanski. Back when they had, they still have Kirk Cousins, but Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, and Stephon Diggs at one point. Like, he is a good staff builder and knows how to pick out a correct OC. And Kevin Stefanski, back in 2019, when he was the OC for the Vikings, then in 2020 took over the Cleveland Browns head coaching job. And then we saw what the Browns did in 2020. Made a deep playoff run. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. So Kevin Stefanski did a great job because he was under Zimmerman, and Zimmerman knows how to build a correct staff, and he knows how to evaluate talent. I'm very high on Zimmerman, someone that a lot of people do not talk about. So let's go on to my number 2 head coaching candidate. My number 2 head coaching candidate could probably be one because I got to talk a little bit realistically, but for now, and just for the sake of this video, he's going to be at number 2. Give me former Eagles head coach Doug Pederson, a very popular name in the Jaguars community. Now, a lot of the Jaguar fans are split when it comes to this, and I see absolutely zero reason as to why that is. There's Jaguar fans that say Doug Pederson shouldn't be the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look at what happened with Carson Wentz, and look at why he's out of a job. Or you got the Jaguar fans that are more on like the, he won a Super Bowl. Look at his resume. He's 42, 37, and 1 in his time. But the thing about Doug Pederson is not only does he have that championship pedigree, he just won a Super Bowl and beat Tom Brady not that long ago. Every quarterback that has played underneath Doug Pederson in Philadelphia has done amazing, excluding Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz in 2017, when he was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt and before Nick Foles came in towards the latter end of the season and then took them all the way to the Super Bowl and won that Super Bowl, Carson Wentz then regressed in 2018, 19, and 2020. Like, Carson Wentz was consistently regressing. And I understand that term, but Jalen Hurts and Nick Foles, when they played under Doug Pederson, were phenomenal quarterbacks. The problem with the Philadelphia Eagles was never Doug Pederson. It was Howie Roseman, their GM, and it was Carson Wentz. Consistently, time and time again, not Doug Pederson. Doug Pederson has also had great offensive coordinators because he's a great staff builder. And I think that this guy did not deserve to be fired from the Philadelphia Eagles last year when they were 4-11-1, I believe, at one point. And Carson Wentz was just playing horrendous. And then Jalen Hurts finished up the last 4 games of the season. But Doug Pederson has had a guy in John DeFilippo, who the Jaguars have had as their offensive coordinator back when we had Nick Foles back in 2019 and Gardner Minshew's rookie season as well. Then he's also had offensive coordinator back in 2017 when Carson Wentz was playing at that MVP level, and Frank Reich, who's now the head coach for our AFC South division rival in the Indianapolis Colts, which Carson Wentz is reunited with Frank Reich. Doug Pederson is a very good coach. I shouldn't even need to say that. Doug Pederson is probably the favorite to land the Jacksonville Jaguars head coaching position job, and I would love to see that. He's a great staff builder, knows how to run an offense, and I would love to see Doug Pederson in here. But let's go on to number 1. Now, my number 1 dream scenario, God, I would be amazing if this happened, is Sean Payton, the head coach for the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton has been the Saints head coach for as long as I can remember. As long as I can recall watching football and watching Drew Brees at a very young age, Sean Payton's always been the coach. He's got a Super Bowl with Drew Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks, most accurate quarterbacks in NFL history. I shouldn't even need to explain to you guys why the Jaguars should want Sean Payton. Now, the reason Sean Payton might want out of New Orleans is because of the whole quarterback situation with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, who tore his ACL, and, prayers up to him. Sean Payton might be looking for a fresh new start, getting out of the NFC and going somewhere else. Jacksonville has plenty of money to offer any head coach. They also are in a no state income tax state, if I said that correctly. A state with no state income tax. You understand my point. Sean Payton would love to develop, and I think this franchise and Trevor Lawrence, really, because Trevor Lawrence is the main attraction for any head coach that wants to come to Jacksonville. Now, Sean Payton might go to the Chicago Bears because Matt Nagy's going to get fired sooner than later. So Sean Payton might go there. But if he's with the New Orleans Saints, then you know what? Good for him. But if he ends up wanting a fresh new start, Jacksonville should look to target Sean Payton, and that would be a very realistic scenario at that point. But Jaguar fans, I want to hear your thoughts down below. What are some head coaches you guys would like to see for the Jaguars going forward for the future? And whether it's Sean Payton, Doug Pederson, or any other coach I did or didn't say, I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. Jags Nation, thank you guys always for the continuous support. But Jags Nation, that's it for this video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Peace.